it's so great to meet you. I played Embraceable Brazil on the show. It's so good to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting into that in your career. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm flattered and honored to be here with you and to be in this position to be asked to reflect on my career or on the making of this record and what it means to me. You know, in the whole process of creating the record, I would never project into the future. I think it's except to insofar as only maybe creating music that knowing that my goal was to reach people. To that extent, I would project into the future in the moment of making the music, but certainly not when I'm playing the drums or performing. Then I'm in the moment making music.
Yeah.
But in more of my producer role of getting this music to fruition, in that sense, I never wanted to get ahead of myself. You know, I've learned that from I'm an avid golfer. I've been in love with the game of golf since I was like 8 years old, and it's come in and out of my life. At one point, I didn't play at all for 25 years because I was just dedicated to my career. But one thing you don't do in golf is if you're playing well, you don't get ahead of yourself and project like, well, I'm going to win this thing or I'm going to beat this guy or anything like that. You stay in the moment, shot by shot, and never get ahead of yourself. So that's how that's kind of been with Embraceable Brazil.
And I've always loved putting bossa nova on the show, and I know that this is a part of your love of that music. So before we actually get into that album, I want to ask you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing so many things, especially for musicians. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed or modified the way that you approach music today?
Well, it's very interesting that you should ask that because when COVID hit, gigs went down. Many gigs went down, meaning that they were canceled. Um, I had more time on my hands. I wanted to be productive. I mean, I still took every gig that came my way in COVID. I didn't back away from playing in a jazz club or whatever the situation was. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to revisit this project, which has been ongoing for at that point for like 10 years, and to keep myself active and engaged and productive. I booked recording sessions, a couple of recording sessions specifically to record more Brazilian music, more Brazilian jazz, more bossa, samba, whatever approach I was going to take to a tune. And so, yeah, I booked time up this time in a studio in Brooklyn, in New York City, to make it easier for the guys, because the musicians that were the rhythm section players for this record were basically all in the New York area. So I embarked on that. In 2021 it was that I started to record some more music toward this record.
So talk to me a little bit about this love of bossa nova, how it got into your blood, Brazil, that vibe. How did that become a part of your jazz musical DNA?
Yeah, it's really pretty blatant how that happened. You know, I lived in a home where my parents were music lovers. They were lovers of the arts in general. They were always going to Broadway plays. I grew up outside of New York in the North New Jersey area, 40 minutes from Midtown Manhattan. But they were what I would consider hip parents. They loved jazz, and they had a pretty good record collection, but not as if they were musicians themselves. More like, let's try this music. I don't know. They found these different records, many of which were Brazilian bossa nova records, specifically, certainly Sergio Mendes and Brazil '66. As soon as that record came out, so that was 1966, I would have been 12 years old. And it was being played all the time. If they had little get-togethers, dinner parties, that music would go on. Not only Sergio, but Laurindo Almeida, the guitar player, which was Charlie Bird stuff from back then. Forget what other records they had, but it was in my ear. I liked it. More on the kind of jazzy Afro side, which wasn't quite Brazilian, was they they played a lot of Herbie Mann. So he was involved in a lot of kind of world music, ethnic music south of the border, and it didn't escape me. I wouldn't say I would just sit there and study the music, but I would also take those records downstairs where my drum set was, and I had a record player, and that's how I played to music back then because I didn't have kids to play with, and I would put records on and play along with the records, and many of them were those very records.
So, do you remember the first live show that you saw growing up that made you think, I want to do that one day? I want to be up there on that stage?
Where I actually said to myself, I want to be up on that stage. I honestly can't say there was a live show that turned me into a musician because I was I was already playing music. What The way it happened is I had an uncle, my dad's brother, who took an interest in playing the drums, and he fiddled around, bought a drum set, fiddled around with them, and then I got to playing them like I was interested in them, and he gave me that drum set. And coordinated with that was a second cousin, a woman that was older than me that was very musical. She came down from Boston to live with our two families, basically. She was orphaned, but she was very talented. She was a trumpet player. She could sing. She also played the drums. And so she started giving me lessons. This is before I ever heard any music that made me say, well, I want to be a musician. Of course, we were all impacted by the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and but that wasn't enough to trigger something in me to say I want to play the drums. It was more like listening to records. I was actually the first probably concert that I was taken to that, and I was already playing for a few years. I think it was for maybe my 13th birthday. My mother took me to see Dave Brubeck and his quartet with Joe Morello, who was one of my favorite drummers at the time because I was just loving Time Out, Time Further Out. I wore those records out. And so she took me to the Shakespeare Music Festival Theater, the Shakespeare Theater in Hartford. So it was a good 2 hour drive into Connecticut. I think it was close to Hartford, where it was a beautiful concert hall. And I was able to watch the quartet. I loved it. And then when the concert was over, she said, follow me. We're going to go to the back of the auditorium, to the outside. Maybe you'll be able to meet Joe Morello. And sure enough, Joe came out to greet a few fans, and I think I was the only kid there. Yeah, so uh, I can definitely share that experience at the concert going, but I was already playing, so I was more interested in just playing music.
So talk to me about why percussion, why drums? What was it about that world other than a horn or any other avenue that you could have picked? Why was it that?
It just resonated with me. It just felt right. I loved it. Maybe it's partly the athlete in me. I mean, there's hand-eye coordination involved, but the feeling, the sound that came off of drums into uh, through my brain and my ear in terms of like the quality of the sound of drums. And I can tell you that when I was in grade school, um, when I was in fourth grade, I performed for the first time in front of an audience. I was playing with a guitar player who lived in the street behind me. We had a couple of tunes we worked together, and I brought a bass drum, and I don't even think I had a hi hat. I think I had what was called a low boy, which was an old short hi hat, old fashioned, and a snare drum into the fourth grade class, and we played two songs. And each year after that, I played in front of finally, I think by sixth grade, it was in front of the whole school because they had a multi-purpose room where they could bring in a couple of classes. And I was still playing with that same guitar player. And by then, I think we might have added one other musician. Um, but what I was also doing in grade school was playing the violin. and I was taking lessons from a woman. Her name was Judith Eisner. She was actually the principal violinist in the New Jersey Symphony at the time, and started that in fourth grade. Came sixth grade, I had to make a decision. I felt I had to make a decision. It was going to be one or the other, and I had to tell her, look, I think I'm going to stop the violin, and she was upset. She was very upset, but I just couldn't put any more time into practicing the violin and aspiring to whatever that was, wherever that was going to go. The drums just overtook me, and it just the passion. I've been, I would just constantly go downstairs and play my drums. I actually have recordings of me playing at the basement to either taking solos or playing along with the records, because my dad had this old Wallensack reel-to-reel tape recorder with a big fat Shure microphone, and I would set it up and play along and listen back to it. So the recording process was beginning pretty early on.
Right on. So you've been in Philadelphia since the mid 70s. What is it about that town, the land of Coltrane, so to speak, that has allured you, that you've evolved with, that you've chosen to stay in? What is it about Philly?
Philly has incredible amount of soul. I mean, not to say other cities don't have it. Of course they do. There's something about the Philadelphia feeling of music and soul, uh, from jazz to R&B. It's always existed here. I mean, Mickey Roker, who is probably Philadelphia's most famous drummer, jazz drummer. He was playing when he got out of the army. He was playing R&B gigs, soul gigs. A lot of jazz drummers of that era came out of rhythm and blues. They were, and so inherent in that was a feeling, a depth of swing. It's the only way I can describe it. It kind of grows on you if you stay around here long enough. I think a lot of young musicians are still coming to Philadelphia. We have great music schools here. One just up the road from me here, Temple University has a great music school, and a lot of these young guys are coming here not just for the education they can get and earning their masters or doctorates, but they know they're going to be in an environment uh, where the feeling of the music is genuine and runs really deep. And that comes out of the great history of all the jazz musicians that were Philadelphians. So uh, it. I mean, I kind of fell onto Philly by accident because I was in college in Washington D.C. for 3 years, and then I quit to join like a local type pop band up here in Philly. All my friends from that were going to Berklee School of Music, a bunch of them relocated to South Jersey. I hooked up with them, and from there I started to explore what Philadelphia had to offer. In fact, the first time I ever played in Philadelphia, I started calling around. I was in New Jersey in my apartment, started calling around to bars. I mean, back then you had to pick up the yellow pages and
Yeah.
telephone. And are there jazz clubs? Is there a jazz club? Well, finally someone said, there's this place, Gertz. So I called up Gertz, and woman at the bartender asked, she said, yeah, we got jazz here. We got jazz. You just got a sit-in night on Monday. And she gave me the address, and I drove into Philly and went into this spot on South Street, just west of Broad Street, 1500 block. And it was this organ bar. I mean, a B3 on the stage, and the organist was a guy named Herbie Nicks, and it was a skinny little bar. You could barely walk down the aisle without hitting your right elbow on the Hammond and your left elbow on somebody seated at the bar. But it was soulful, swinging organ trio or quartet, whatever, depending on who. And I sat in, and I kind of became a regular there. They liked me, And it's the kind of place where the music was so swinging so hard that people would be dancing in the aisles if it was the right tempo. There's a dance here in Philadelphia called the bop, where it's just a nice dance that mostly black folks in Philly were proponents of dancing at the bop. And if the tempo was right, you could see people grabbing their partners and dancing. It was an incredible atmosphere. And there were great musicians coming through that would come in and sit in, and I got to meet that I had no idea who they were. The drummers like drummer Edgar Bateman was a regular there. So yeah, Philly. I hope that answers the
It
question.
does. Yeah, it certainly does. And you've been at this for quite a while. I'm curious, what gets you up every day? What do you love the best about being a professional musician?
I think that it's the 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 deep fulfillment and pleasure that comes from playing my instrument and aspiring to play the instrument in every capacity that it offers in the best way possible motivates me. It's endless. I mean, it's endless in the sense from a functional standpoint, making sure your groove and your time is in a good spot, to the creativity that's available. And fortunately, I feel I have some degree of creativity, so that my sense of playing the drums here on my own is for pure pleasure. I'm not a workaholic trying to come up with the most intricate thing I can that would be impressive to play on the drums. I'm more interested in stream of consciousness and creativity and coming up with things as they occur to me if I sit down at the drum set. So that it seems to be a bottomless pit. I'm not saying I'm some type of creative genius. I'm just saying I don't have a problem sitting down and always coming up with something new eventually. It just occurs to me. And when I play something kind of new, I'll usually grab my phone, record it, and see what that sounded like.
So let me ask you this. Um, why do you love this art form we call jazz? You've dedicated your life to it. Why do you love it?
It's on the deepest level. It's a jazz is a conversation. It's a conversation with the people you're playing with. It has its own language and it reaches really deep. It's very intimate. I think having that connection and being able to um, bounce off other people, be inspired by what they're playing, to react to them and to support them is what jazz seems to offer to me that other music doesn't quite offer. I mean, it offers equally great things in that capacity to, let's say, whatever that genre of music is. But jazz is the most intimate way to connect with your fellow musicians and really uh, have an intimate conversation. And when it's succeeding, and you know that it's happening, you get looks from other musicians when things occur, when you have moments where you connect, whatever, it gets acknowledged. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. That happens, throughout every tune. But um, I hope that answers
Yeah.
why it strikes me. And not to mention, there's no feeling like the feeling of swinging in jazz. Regardless of the tempo, there's there's something about that feeling that is just resonates so deeply. It's so much. It feels so good. It just it just feels so good inside that it's irresistible.
So at the end of the day, Tom, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone you play with on the bandstand, everyone in an educational capacity, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Is that's a pitch coming from one of the Dodgers there? It's a fastball.
That's This is the
That's a
therapy session.
that's a fastball down the middle, I think. Or, no, maybe it was a curve. I'm not going to say it's a curveball, but can
Or
you
an off
repeat that?
speed.
What's my perception of myself? Is that what you're saying? In
Yeah, because everybody has this idea. There's all these different lights that people see you in for the role that you play, but ultimately you're the driving force behind who you are. So just who do you think you are? What's your perception?
I is that that I'm providing the foundation for other people to be able to be their best. In other words, supportive, being supportive. And you've heard it before, a band is only as good as its drummer, I
Yeah.
think. So to the extent that I can fulfill that, and I think I do that well, and I've worked at doing that. It's about being selfless um, and just giving into the music, regardless of what the music is, to make sure it's grooving. So there's that element, and I think that I'm perceived as somebody that's a team player and somebody that can also inspire people to lift the music, hopefully to the next level as it's being performed. I think I have the ability to do that. I know I have the ability to do that, and I don't know where that comes from, but I think it's just that an intensity, if that I'm able to provide when the music needs to get more intense, or sensitivity when music needs to be even more delicate and sensitive. I think I provide those. That's how I perceive what I have to offer.
So at the end of the day, if anyone wants to pick up a copy of Embraceable Brazil, a wonderful album, catch you live, any of your previous work, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, you can go to my website as the easiest thing because then you can access everything as well as previous records, and that's tomcohenproductions.com. And there you can there's a button for Embraceable Brazil, and just click on that, and there's access to listen to the music on Bandcamp. So uh, it's free to listen to every tune. I would hope people would want to purchase it, but right now it's set up. You can listen to it, um, as well as there's a great EPK on there where I talk about the music, and there's live video uh, from some of the recording sessions. So that's probably the best way. But Tom Cohen, Bandcamp, any of those things will lead you to Embraceable, or just click on Google Embraceable Brazil, and stuff starts to come up.
And I will put all of these links in the show notes. Tom, what a joy, man. Thank you so much. Great to meet you. Thank you for your music. Thank you for what you're doing for the world of jazz, and best of luck with everything.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.